Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for another card video. Today I'm doing a galaxy card with this Starstream die by Simon Says Stamp and this Shooting Star set by Mama Elephant. That's where my sentiment is coming from. I'm also going to be using several of the artist brushes by Ranger. I have a piece of Strathmore 90-pound watercolor paper. I'm going to spritz it with some water, and then I actually should have done this first, but I've got 4 different colors: Twisted Citron, Picked Raspberry, Peacock Feathers, and Wilted Violet. So I'm going to put a little bit of each on my craft mat, and then I'm going to take the 1/2 inch brush that comes with that set, get some water on it, and I always use my paper piercer to kind of hold down my paper until it eventually flattens out. You could tape your cardstock to your craft mat or a board or something like that. I'm just a little lazy when it comes to that. So I'm going to just put a bunch of different colors all over the place. I actually wished I would have done this vertically instead of horizontally, but I made it work anyway. So I'm just going to put as many like splotches of color as I can, and then I heat it to set it. And then I noticed I had a little bit too much water in this upper left-hand corner, so I'm just going to fill it in a little bit more with some of my peacock feathers and then dry it. To add a little bit more variation in my colors, I'm just going to drop some water quickly, and then I'll take a tissue and pick it up. So I'll get some white spots in between on top of all this different color. Before moving on to this next step, you want to make sure that your cardstock is really dry. I'm going to take some black soot and put a bunch of it on my craft mat because I'm going to use quite a bit of it. I'm moving to the number 6 brush, which has a little bit of a rounder tip, and I'm going to grab some water and start applying the black. Now my first layer of black is going to be very thin, so I'm going to cover most of the cardstock but leave just a little bit of the color showing here and there. And that's why I put so many different colors as my first layer, because I wanted to have a lot of different options for the various colors as I was coloring it with the black. I'm going to be trimming this back in a little bit, so I'll pick kind of my favorite part of it. Now once I get my first layer of black, I'm going to take the number 4, which is smaller, and I'm going to drop in some darker black. So I like to start light and then go darker just because it's easier to do that. So notice that I'm really focusing on the edges of where my light black is against the color. So I don't want to cover up too much color. But you can see how it adds more dimension to have just that line of dark black. And it is going to fade a little bit after it dries. So now that I'm done with my black, I'm adding another step. I wish I would have kept my colors on my craft mat earlier, but I'm going to add some color to the dark black areas. And what this is going to do is add darker versions of the color, so I'm getting even more variation. I'm going to do this with the Picked Raspberry, the Wilted Violet, and the Peacock Feathers. I'm not going to worry too much about the Twisted Citron because it's really light. One thing I wish I would have done a little differently on this panel is I wish I would have not made it so consistent from left to right. So I wish I would have made some of my lines diagonal, and I did that on a previous panel, which I'm going to show you after I finish this one. The thing about the Galaxy is that I have a series of steps that I go through, but sometimes I don't necessarily do them all in the same order or do them the same. So right now I've added sort of this extra step. I'm just using plain water on my brush to blend out some of the areas that I felt were a little bit too harsh in their edges. After I let this dry, it definitely faded a little bit, and I felt like there was too much color showing. And you'll see that in the other panel that I worked on, I thought it was way too much color. So I thought, now I'm going to do this one much darker than I did my first one, and I'm going to add more black. So this is another step that I didn't do previously, and I'm adding that now, and it's going to look terrible because I'm going to add so much black that you're barely going to be able to see the color. So you might like it better with more color or more black, but I'll show you the other one. You can compare the two. At this point, I've decided I'm going to use the left side of my cardstock, so I'm not going to worry too much about the right side. This next step is one of my standard Galaxy technique steps, and that is to take a very pointy brush and some Gonzai Tombow white paint. Now my panel is still a little bit damp, so it doesn't have pools of water, but it's definitely damp, and my fine tip here allows me to drop just a little bit of white paint, and I'm dropping it in various places, and you can see that it plumes out and it adds yet another dimension of cloudiness to my panel. And it's nice because it's white, so it's adding some contrast as well. So you can see I'm dropping several dots in a row, and then I'm going back and sort of spreading them out a little bit. But you can see how it makes it look like I've got some areas that are in front and some areas that are in back, because now I have this white added. Now I'm going to thoroughly dry this and add some white splatters with that same Gansai Tambi paint, and they actually faded completely. So someone gave me a tip to use some acrylic paint for this, so I'm going to use acrylic paint this time. I've got this huge bottle from Dick Blick. I'm going to use just a tiny little bit and my paintbrush, and I'm going to get some water onto it and that paint, and then I'm going to drop it down. You can see that the splatters are kind of brighter than they were with the Gansai Tambi. They will fade a little bit, but they don't fade nearly as much as the Gansai Tambi. This is actually my last step finally for this Galaxy panel. I'm going to work on the other part of the card. I have an A2 size Neenah cardstock. I'm going to put my Starstream die across it diagonally. So I'll have 3 pieces. I'll use the stars and the bottom piece, and I'm going to discard the top piece. Now I want my stars to be a little bit different rather than just plain white, so I'm going to adhere this temporarily to a piece of scratch paper. That's just so I don't have to hold it while I do this. And then I'm going to take some Versamark ink and cover the whole thing, and then I will sprinkle it with some silver embossing powder and heat it to set it, and I'll just use my tweezers to pull it off this paper, and it comes off really easily. Next, I'm going to take that bottom portion of the cardstock and figure out where I want to cut my galaxy. So once I pick the best part, I'm going to just mark it at the top here, and then I'm going to run it through the trimmer. So I'm going to do this in pieces. So I'll just do the top for now, and then I'm going to put it against the left side and cut it vertically. So now I've got a piece that fits perfectly right there from one side to the other. I'm going to add some tape runner to the back of my Galaxy panel and adhere it to the top of my card base, which is just standard Neenah Solar White. And then I'll add some tape runner to my Starstream panel and put it at the bottom on top of the Galaxy. I'm going to hold my Starstream with my tweezers and add some two-way glue to it. And then I'm going to place it right there inside the little grooves that were created with the die. So I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to work my way slowly to the top and just constantly push that die cut against the white panel. Sorry about my head there. It's really hard to do without being on top of it so you can see it straight. All right, once I get that adhered, I'm going to add my sentiment, and I'm going to use VersaFine Black Onyx ink for that. It's my favorite ink for sentiments. It's very crisp, and it also cleans really easily. I actually decided to do one more thing with this Galaxy panel, and that is to add some white dots with my white gel pen, because I wanted to add a little bit more of the splatter. I wanted it to be a little brighter. So just here and there, and I colored on top of some of the ones that were already there. That completes the card. Now I wanted to show you the other one that I made. You can see that I didn't cover as much of the color, so it's standing out, and I also didn't put as much black. So just a little different look there. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.